everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Ask the Anabolic Doc, starring Dr. Thomas O'Connor, brought to you by the websites anabolicdoc.com and metabolicdoc.com, both of which you can get your copy of his new book, Steroids in America, A Time to Heal. Doctor, the book's been out a couple weeks now. How is it doing?
Thank you so much, Ron. Excited for another show here. Really well. It's been about 2 weeks. We're selling it from a place in Maryland, and we initially just used a printer, and it's a publisher printer. It's technically a printer. I'm the publisher in Maryland, and we're selling about 10 a day. You know, for my first book and for a small little guy, I'm really happy. People are just starting. It takes apologize for some of the delay. It seems like by the order and then by the time it's shipped to someone, it could take 7 to 10. The shipping is. I'm learning this. It's just kind of a lengthy thing. But people are really responding very, very well, and we love it. The next step is Amazon.
Yeah.
We're working, trying to get it on Amazon next, and I have some people working with me. And with my day job, Ron, these things are. It just is what it is. My main focus is my patients, of course.
Right.
And of course, my media, this is very important to me, and answering these questions and making sure we take the time to do it right. But thank you so much. The book is great. Please go on the anabolicdoc.com. That's a page where it's obviously focused on anabolic steroid medical related issues. And then the main website is the Metabolic Doc.
So is it www.the or just metabolic?
No, just www.metabolicdoc.com and www.anabolicdoc.com.
Got it.
And, I bought those in 2009 and 10 for $12.95 from after 2 glasses of wine and a little credit card that had a few bucks on it, at GoDaddy.
Okay. Too bad you didn't buy Amazon.com, and then they would come knocking at you for that.
Can you believe it?
Named your price. Okay. We got so many questions, Doctor. So many people are responding, and they have a lot of concerns. So let's get right to it. The first one comes from, this came to me over Instagram because people are, like we discussed right before we started taping, they're coming from all avenues asking, how can I get this question to the doctor? So this one came to me on Instagram. It says, a gentleman named Davey Moonen says, I'm a lifetime natural bodybuilder since I'm in my 30s now, and my own T will be declining in the coming years. Are there some supplements, not drugs, you believe can have an effect? As a side note, can HCG boost my natural T? Are there negative side effects to HCG? Wow.
This is, it's amazing how we're basically kind of getting all the same kind of questions. So this is like, remember the first show we had this?
Yeah.
So I believe the first episode, someone said, what are the natural boosters and testosterone boosters, right, Doc?
Yep.
So I would go back to the first episode because we want to keep moving today, but I'm going to hit this, I'm going to reiterate this.
Yeah.
So there are so a man's natural testosterone doesn't necessarily go down just because he's in his 30s, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
It slowly does tick down, but it is true that most men that are healthy, even into their 50s and 60s, will have even normal level testosterones, and their libido is still fine. They're still healthy. Yeah. Now, to maintain that means that he's not the standard American, and he's in great shape. And this is not putting anyone down. I'm not putting the standard American down. Even me, if you stay in great shape and you don't develop metabolic disease, you stay tight, you stay lean, you stay healthy. You're not going to have diabetes, pre-diabetes, cholesterol issues, heart disease, of course, hypertension. And if you're lean and mean, the average lean and mean man who's even in his 60s and 70s, which again, there's not too many around. But it is true though that these guys, because I'm a primary care doctor, their testosterone can be 500 or 600. And you know what? How's your sex drive, sir? It's really, your testosterone number is a piece of paper now, apart from my anabolic recovery, Ron, these are whole different segments of men. So if you've used anabolic agents, you're not some regular guy who's slowly going down. You're a guy who can rapidly go down because you're shutting off your own. That's the anabolic steroid-induced hypogonadism.
ACIH.
That's right, Ron.
ASIH. I'm sorry.
So this is now a distinct medical, a diagnostic. It's a diagnosis. It's a real diagnosis. So answer the question naturally. Yohimbe, zinc, magnesium. herbs, tribulus. So those are all, please see episode 1, Ron. Those all, sir, David, I have Ron gave me the email, I was prepared. So this is, please see that first episode, because I went into all the mechanisms on how all those natural agents affect from the brain and the pituitary, hypothalamus, and the gonads. What part of the chain do those natural agents, including tribulus, yohimbe, and all the barks, I call them, and I'm not belittling them, nothing compares in the end to just taking testosterone, and people know that. So, but HCG, let's go into HCG. So human chorionic gonadotropin is an alpha analog, right, of luteinizing hormone, and we use it in the bro science world, right, in the steroid bodybuilding world for pulse cycle therapy. We use it in the real world of the medical fertility world for increasing testosterone. So it works. So the guy says, as a side note, an HCG boosts natural testosterone. Well, hold on a minute. HCG is going to increase your testosterone. Is that natural? No. You're using HCG.
Yeah.
But if you use HCG, because HCG is going to stimulate your testicles, Leydig cells, to produce more testosterone. So when you're living on HCG, and let's just talk about the numbers, because I know guys want to know numbers. 250, 500, 750, and if you're a steroid user, these guys have to take up 2,500. And again, Ron, you and I both know the bro science in the streets. So, Rich Piana and these guys were saying, hey guys, and I'm not putting, I think Rich was a cool guy. It's sad he's passed on. I'm trying to prevent this stuff from happening and let people beware of what could happen. Yeah. So Rich would come off cycle, and he would say, and his openness was eye-opening and amazing. Mm. Guys, I think he was taking, guys, you got to take 5,000 IUs every other day of HCG. Now, if a regular man that's never used steroids did that, who has a normal intact brain and testicle, woo! I don't even know, the levels would go up to like being on steroids, like 2,000, 3,000. I've actually never seen a man, I never measured testosterone any more than a guy that is, after using steroids, say 1,500 or 2,000, because I'm doing it, and I'm trying to keep him fertile and keep his testosterone up so he can, a guy told me years ago, Doc, here's what's going on, Doc. I'm a steroid user. Doc, I want to have another kid. You got to keep my testosterone levels elevated so I could get my penis into my wife. I swear I couldn't make it up. Yeah. So if I have no libido, so if I'm shooting blanks, Doc, then you got to make it so I don't shoot blanks. You got to get it so the penis gets hard, and I'm shooting semen. HCG. So if you do HCG long enough, that's not going to be natural, but it's not like taking steroids, because it is your testosterone. So that's really kind of semi-natural, because it's your own testosterone. But again, your brain is being bypassed because you're just giving your testicle stimulation from exogenous drug called HCG, right? Yeah. So if he does it, it will boost your testosterone? Absolutely. Are there negative side effects? Okay, so if you're on the drug and you're enjoying it, there's going to come a day where you're going to want to come off. And then when you come off, there's the whole thing again. Your brain has been enjoying whatever level the HCG's been giving. So when you lower it, the brain says, I don't like this. I want to go back. So you either go back on testosterone. So that's the buyer beware. But is there any medical consequences to HCG? If you read the literature, it's a fertility drug, right? And people think it's more for women than men, but men use it too. Fertility guys, they're called fertility urologists. They're urology guys and girls in the whole world, and they specialize, and they're really learning a lot from me and my patients, because they're seeing all these guys coming in off steroids, and their sperm is devastated. So they ask me what to do, and I tell them, use HCG. Then they use HMG, and we use Brevel and Overdrill. And again, I say the same thing over. Now, those are expensive derivatives that I probably can't get them covered, because the insurance company is going to say, are you a urologist, Dr. O'Connor? You're an internist. Send them to a urologist and maybe we'll pay for it. So 99% of my guys that are anabolic steroid using, that have low T, anabolic steroid-induced hypogonadism, and they're infertile in addition to this, I get away with 99% of them. HCG works like a charm. Okay. But I don't not answer. I want to answer the guy's question. So, long-term consequences of HCG. it does aromatize. Your own testosterone aromatizes. So then you're going to get secondary issues, secondary to high levels of estrogen, gynecomastia, puffiness, hypertension, acne, and then in the end of the day, your testosterone levels are probably going to get affected long term, like using steroids, because whenever you give the brain something it likes, when you pull it away, there you go.
Okay. So, Swaminator, who has been the all-star of this show so far with the questions. So, Swaminator says, you guys hit another home run with this interview. Thanks for answering my question about DECA as a maintenance drug. One statement you made caught my attention, and that was something related to nitric oxide levels. Since I have high blood pressure, and since I like the benefits of the pump, and since I like the benefits of better chubbies, I am always looking to boost my NO levels. I take Bistolic for blood pressure. I also supplement with citrulline and arginine before workouts and before bed, and I mix pomegranate juice into my pre-workout. All this stuff is supposed to boost NO levels, but now I'm guessing there is a negative side effect to doing all this. Can you please enlighten me?
Let me do it. First of all, Swaminator, we just started this, and it's always going to be all good. It's all good politics, right, Ron?
Yeah.
Swaminator is one of the first guys. I don't know who the hell Swaminator is, but I love Swami. I call him Swami. Hey, Swami, here it is, buddy. Powerlifting USA, because Swami's an old powerlifter like me, although I think I'm older than him. Yeah. Powerlifting USA, front cover. I didn't make the front cover because I'm not strong, but it said, where is it?
Meet the Anabolic Doc. Yeah, there you are.
So this is when I first hit it big. I hit it big in Powerlifting USA, baby. This was July 2009, and then Blackman called me. I told you, Blackman called me about 6 months later, I think. So there it is, Swami. Okay, great question, Swami. So we talked about the steroids. So this is amazing. Here we go. Strap in for this.
Okay.
So nitric oxide levels and come out of the artery, the endothelial wrapping of the arterial bed, all through the body, in the brain, and in the muscles, and in the heart, the coronary artery. But let's talk about the penis. So in the corpus cavernosum, which is the meat, that's the penis, and it has a mechanism so complicated that we don't even understand it completely, that when you get a chubby and you look at something you like and you get excited, signals go from your brain down to your penis, and your penis starts to get engorged with blood. Do you imagine how complicated this is? You got brain stuff going on. You got endocrine stuff with testosterone levels and dopamine levels, and you got to have depression, no depression. Then you have to have an intact nervous system. Then you have to have blood vessels that are not diseased. So back when Pfizer developed Viagra, I know I say the same thing over and over, Ron. Maybe the show will get boring actually one day.
Yeah, maybe.
Hopefully. That's why I gotta do
That always lightens things up.
Crazy.
Oh Lord. Okay. We got them both in there. You got them.
Okay, I have a left arm too. Ron was at his doc, like is he just a unilateral guy? Okay. So when Pfizer Pharmaceuticals developed this drug, they developed because they were working with nitric oxide in the coronary artery to vasodilate the artery that's on your heart. All the guys came back, and this is like 1990s, they came back and they were, I told you, hey honey, give me some of that stuff, don't worry about me. And so they realized that there was an enzyme called phosphodiesterase, number 5, and it's in the nose, it's in the heart a little bit. Thank God, not a lot bit, because otherwise you tank your blood pressures and we wouldn't be using it. Lungs, we give it IV. We give IV Viagra for pulmonary hypertension in the ICU. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
IV Viagra. Come on, honey.
IV Viagra. Well, where do I get some of that? Okay.
Got that. It's true, by the way. So that's for all the doctors and all the nurses that work in the ICUs. They go, yeah, we know that. Don't take some of that stuff home. So back in the penis, you're vasodilated, but the problem is men who have early coronary artery disease from blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, aging, cigarette smoking, right? These arteries are dysfunctional and they can't produce enough nitric oxide. So, two things. We have substrates. Swami, you're right. Substrates. anyone who knows the physiology knows you need for the amino acids. These are the precursors in the endothelial wall with these enzymes and these mechanisms to produce nitric oxide. Swami, you could take as much goddamn arginine and citrulline and ornithine back in the day. Remember arginine, ornithine? I did a lot of it. I was big and strong and using some steroids and this stuff. You just use everything. It's crazy. So, in the end of the day, you take all these precursors, you're overloading a system that's just not going to change it. Like anabolic steroids versus protein. You need a certain amount of protein to get big. Then you can take as much protein as you want. There's a limit. You're not going to get bigger. But if you take steroids, that stimulates the receptor, the androgen receptor, and the skeletal muscle upregulates from a genetic, from a DNA level to able to make more protein. And then it uses the substrate of amino acids, right?
Yeah.
So the same analog in this. It is probably true, and I've used this, that if you're using a drug like a nitric oxide doning drug, like Bistolic, Swami is my guy. If you're be careful, but I like Swami's thinking. If you're using a nitric oxide doning drug, there's not many. Phosphodiesterase inhibitor is the poster child of it. Then you may be able to utilize more substrate. So if you take Cialis, Viagra, Levitra, and I've done this, and then you say, I'm going to be able to utilize more substrate, do you think you probably in your natural diet, in your serum, blood, your need to substrate enhance? That's a great medical scientific question. I don't know, but I've taken citrulline and arginine from GNC with my Cialis, thinking that I'm going to get a better pump, and I do. But is it placebo? And of course, sexual function, it's insane. But do I think that those substrates lead and help and augment what my limitation is at the cell site because of phosphodiesterase. In addition, do I need more substrate? This is not something where I see no danger in this.
Yeah.
The only danger is if you're using of these medicines and you have if your pressure tanks, and you have kidney disease or something. I mean, beyond the obvious. So that's a great question. Substrate, arginine, ornithine, that's the substrate, like an amino acid is for protein, that this is for nitric oxide. But the real rate limiting step is the nitric oxide mechanism functional, and that's phosphodiesterase. And so that's, if we inhibit that enzyme, we build up nitric oxide, and you get a great chubby. So is that pretty clear, though? So that's a good scientific question, I thought.
So yeah, I guess, are there negative side effects to doing everything he's doing? Yes or no?
So you get side effects of these drugs. What are they? Flushing, nasal congestion, funny enough, backache, which I think is because it vasodilates in the erector spinae for some weird reason, and men can get pumps. But you know what? I'm not going to launch off into back pumps. We're not going to go to back pumps. But it seems like it causes men. It's really true because the data was clear in this, and I've seen this. My back's tight, so they get muscle spasms. Most of this goes away, but if you have coronary disease, if you have heart disease, and you're on nitrates, this is a no. Oh my! This is like so. So you have to look for the phosphodiesterase drugs and see what are the side effects of those, and it's all going to relate to the heart and the blood circulatory system. So that would be dangerous because if your blood pressure is low, these definitely could cause further lowering in blood pressure.
Okay.
So you got to be careful. But it's a great question. If he's on nitric oxide doning drug like Bistolic and he's tolerating it well, and in addition to that, if he takes a little Cialis, of course he has to have his own doctor, and he takes these medicines and he uses the extra substrate, and he goes, wow, I did my own little experiment, and I feel better pump, I feel better, and my sex, my erections are better. How great is this?
Pretty great. Okay, Michael Edwards wants to know the doctor's take on prohormones, specifically Superdrol and 1-androstenediol in comparison to real D-bol and testosterone. And I made him clarify that we're not talking about muscle building benefits. That's not what this show is about. You know, what drugs to use to get huge. It's a health. This is a health and wellness show. We're trying to keep people healthy. So all these various pro-hormones and so forth, from a health point of view, do you think they're more or less dangerous or equally dangerous to regular actual steroids that are commonly used?
Well, I appreciate that disclaimer, Ron, because it's very clear now after me being in the world for 10 years that there's no blessing. I don't have to give a blessing on steroids, but I actively take care of steroid users because it's ethically correct to do so.
Yeah.
Okay, so beyond that, Ron, I don't even have to answer this question because you can answer this question. Superdrol is an anabolic steroid. They just blew the dust off.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, this is what Ron, I'm going to ask you the question.
Sure.
These are pro hormones. It's really this is more of a game, a pharmaceutical supplement drug, and I'm not saying company names. This is back in the day where these formulas were novel formulas, and they were marketed as supplements and pro hormones, where your body would either first of all, Superdrol. I had my medical student looked it up. It's actually an anabolic androgenic steroid. So let's clarify the terms here. This is not a pro-hormone, it's a steroid.
It's an oral steroid, yeah.
Come on, it's an alpha alkylated. We just checked it out.
Yeah.
And I remember, guys, and I'm not going to say that, I just don't want to say the name of the company because we all know who he is in his company. He's probably had some problems in his life, and God bless him, he's probably not a bad guy. So in the end of the day, I remember back in 2005 seeing it on my buddy's just gym shit. My buddy, of course, all my friends have owned gym at one time or another. Everyone's owned a gym.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I was like, and guys were taking it, and I swear it was just like D-ball.
Yeah.
Because it was D-ball. I mean,
Right.
So, and some guys, some powerlifters, because those are the guys that I've typically was in the past flocking around and training around, they were like, shit, I like Superdrol better than D-ball for strength.
Yeah.
You know, so, and then the truth is, the manufacturing standards for where we're getting all this stuff, it's probably, if they could get D-ball cheap or Anadrol powder and make it and call it Superdrol, and if a guy, you don't even know. Talk to Bill Llewellyn. That's why he has that ingenious methodologies of determining roid test. Because the truth is, like, Anavar is expensive to make, and I know so little about the manufacturing because I just don't really care. But it is interesting. Dianabol, Superdrol, these are cheap, easy to make apparently, and I think something like Anavar is more of a higher end. It's always like $1 a pill.
Oh,
$2.
Those are the good old days. Yeah, $2 or $3 in some cases.
So that tells you. So that's supply demand stuff. Anyway, so these are oral anabolic steroids, and then the other one, the real true pro hormone, is just a chemical agent that is that you ingest orally, and when it's going through its metabolic processing in the body, mainly the liver, it's going from an inactive agent to a stimulatory anabolic steroid. Right, Ron?
Yeah. I mean,
so
you'd be surprised at how many natural, quote unquote natural bodybuilders over the years have come up, they've approached me or messaged me and said, I don't want to use steroids, but I'm going to get on this Superdrol stuff, and how much should I? They're asking me how to use it. I said, first of all, that is a steroid, and their concern is that, well, it's I don't want to do anything dangerous and use steroids. I'm going to use this pro hormone. I said, honestly, I'm not going to advocate steroids. I don't bless them for anybody either, but from your liver's point of view, you're so much better off doing a couple shots of test a week than you are swallowing oral steroids every day. Doing an oral only cycle is just insane. It's insanely reckless as far as I'm concerned.
What's funny that the American guys have always, goes back to the 80s and 90s that I remember. The American guy, this is because I have a lot of experiences all over the world now. The American guys before the internet knew, don't do too many pills, don't drink. Remember this, Ron? Back in the 80s, Ron? We're about the same age. Yeah. Don't drink on the pills because it does something to the liver. Don't do too many. Do them for a short period before. These are powerlifters, and they used so little back then. That's why most of the guys are still around. And this is no blessing. This is the cultural side of the show. And And they were worried and they were in fear. They were in fear. They lived in fear of what could happen, and rightly so. But guys, in the end of the day, they would realize, so versus testosterone, well, testosterone is an injectable ester or suspension, which is an aqueous base. So if we're really, this is a scientific show, right, Ron?
Yeah.
So testosterone is testosterone. That's an apple versus an orange. D-ball is D-ball. It's an oral alpha alkylated drug. And then we have the other drugs are certainly, so if it's a pro-hormone, it's probably, in essence, compared to D-ball, probably weaker. And I don't keep track of what these are. Forgive me. I don't keep track of all. But I know the Superdrol is an anabolic steroid, not a pro-hormone. Anadrol is Anadrol. D-ball is D-ball. And testosterone is really not a... Testosterone's the only... that's the holy grail. Testosterone is... You're born as a man on testosterone. Yeah. So that's what I do is TRT, is testosterone replacement therapy. Isn't that amazing? So if you take this much extra, it's a steroid. Well, where's this line? I mean, that's a whole other topic. But
yeah.
So the truth, the answer to this, to Michael Edwards, is in comparison, pro hormones. So they're like steroids, and if you take oral steroids, you can get serious liver issues, and you can get liver cysts, and it certainly destroys your HDL, and you can end up hurting yourself with cardiac disease, and it decimates HDL. And testosterone can too, but now we're getting into a whole steroid talk, so I'll just shut it down.
Yeah, because we have quite a question coming up. This is definitely the question of the week. Came to us from a gentleman named Dariusz Piwowarski over in Poland. Is it possible to reverse arteriosclerosis?
Okay, that's my main puppy. So atherosclerosis. So I love that. So here's a normal. This is the coronary artery. It sits on top of the heart. You got a left and a right coronary artery. That's all you got. And then when you're like this, that's wide open. And then over time, the number one killer of America for everyone is this. So and in Western civilized world. So right there, then it goes to that. Then it goes to that. Then it goes to that. And then this represents a blockage. And so it's common. So what's that process? Well, this process is multifactorial. I'm just going to move quick. It's genetic. The family history is a big piece. Men have it earlier than women. And then if you smoke and you're inactive and you eat very bad food, saturated fats, and you're in bad shape, that causes it. And then in the end, 3 medical things I'm gonna lead into, 3 medical issues that I deal with as a physician and other internists do all day long: blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, and cholesterol. So with all those variables I just stated, you add all those up for any individual person, and you just add them up, 2 + 2, but it's called Framingham. And then at the end of the day, it's a predictive scale for how much heart disease or plaque you have in there. It's all guessing. I like to get the calcium scores early so you don't have a goddamn heart attack, and we can see, are you like this or like this or like this? But if you're like this one represents angina and you're sucking wind. So the last one is a no-brainer, but it's too late when you're at that one. I want to prevent it. So once you have plaque, let's talk about it. When you have this, and this is asymptomatic. This represents asymptomatic coronary artery disease. This is my expertise. This is all I want to do in life. And of course, the steroid users come in because it's accelerated. Definitely accelerated. I have all the data for it, guys. We're men, and you put heart disease on steroids, literally. So it's very interesting. It's in my whole. That's why guys come in, man. Business is booming. Why? And we're going to Florida. We're opening up in Florida in the next, hopefully, like 6 weeks. Why? Because they give a shit. Guys don't want to have heart attacks. They actually care. My goal, I'm living to 110. My social media is so fun because I show how to do it. But I like to live a little bit better with chemistry because I'm a doc. So, in the end of the day, the data shows us that when you have stable coronary artery disease, there's an argument. It's not easy to reverse. You don't need to reverse. I'm gonna repeat statements from excellent cardiologists when I've asked them this question.
Okay.
It's hard to say, Tom, Dr. O'Connor. It's hard to say if we could reverse coronary disease. You don't really have to reverse it. You have to
Stabilize it.
So it doesn't go from that to that to that. Hopefully you stay, excuse me, I was doing the wrong way. This.
Yeah.
You want to keep it. I have this. I was tracked. I have a calcium. I have a little calcium. I have plaque in my artery. I have this. I have that. I don't want that to progress to that. So how do you limit the progression? Or if you're really aggressive, how do you even delipify? I just talked to the expert. We're working on a video right now. Where we are today with all the risk factors and all the data for TRT for heart disease. We'll do it in a few weeks. Maybe I'll do it in the show.
Okay.
So can you reverse heart disease? I have to say all the extra words here because it's so it's just imperative. You may be able to. The way to do it is to really severe caloric restriction, take your LDL cholesterol, probably on a plant-based diet only, into where your LDL is in the 30s, in your sub-50s, and perfect blood pressure, and you have to have perfect glucose and A1Cs and glycosylation. So listen to what I just said. You have to basically, the average bear can't do it. So can you do it? You don't need to do it. You need to prevent, if you're 30 or 40 or 50 or 20 or 60 and you have a little bit of heart disease, we can stabilize it, Ron. You don't need to reverse it. But if you want to reverse it, here's the guy's question. The literature, this is all evidence-based literature from expert cardiology experts. It's shown in the studies that delipifying, which is taking and drawing out plaque out of those arteries, which is basically it's a multifactorial process. It's gunk, it's oxidized tissue, it's calcified. But if it's soft plaque and you delipify and kind of draw out, imagine you could draw out some of that soft plaque. Yes, and you could remodel. Can you remodel that? You can do it. You have to use in the studies it's shown, high-dose statin therapy. But so high doses, Ron, that people a lot of times can't tolerate the side effects. Now, but doesn't the question come back to me that don't you want to know if you have coronary artery disease today, and don't you want to do everything you can that's sustainable and easy with some low-grade medicines and medicines that are tolerable to stabilize it so you don't go on to have a heart attack? You know, let me tell you this. When someone I'm an internist, right? I love heart disease. But if someone has a heart attack, you know what we do? Our plan is so they don't have another heart attack. And you know what we do? We put them on like 5 days. Knowing what we do, that's it. And then most cases people that have a little bit of heart disease say they have a stent or a bypass, and it's not. I don't want to say it's not severe. It's pretty routine. And otherwise, a heart attack, and the bypass or stent it readily, pretty early. Those people on an aggressive medical regimen with an internist like me and a great cardiologist, they don't go on. They live into their 80s and 90s with Biden. It's how do we do it? Because we take a multifactorial approach: blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, and yeah, we use medicines because some people can't run. Some people can't starve themselves enough, and they can't suffer and live on the diet that is required for them. And why would you hurt those people and make them? So I hope that's answered the question.
I don't think I could. I wouldn't want to be on that diet, for one thing, myself. But yeah, you answered the question. So it sounds like it's not reversible, but it can be stabilized. But if you're at that point, that last clogged up artery that you show, really not.
Hold on. For all the guys that are going to smash me on this, it is reversible.
Okay.
The amount of energy and effort it takes to reverse significant coronary disease is substantial.
Okay.
If you have a little bit of coronary disease, is that easy to reverse? Hell yeah, because you're really not reversing it. You're stabilizing it.
Okay.
And it looks like you're reversing it because you're not having a heart attack, thank God, for 30 years. So I'm actually just stabilizing my heart disease that I have. So I have a little plaque. I have heart disease. I found out when I was 39 years old, Dr. O'Connor, you have heart disease.
Oof. Okay.
Anyway, there it is.
Swaminator asked another question.
Let's go.
Doc, in episode 2, you said that if you want to live to 110 and crush life, mountain bike, lift, etc., you recommend the lowest dosage of test needed to feel like you can do all that. My question is about the total T level. I know this is an individual thing, and I know there are other considerations beyond total T. But to keep it simple, here's my question. What T range do you feel is optimal for most guys who have the same aspirations as you? Live long, but kick ass and stay young. I know you've mentioned high normal range in the past. Does that mean 1100 on the 6th day after your injection? Or is it more like 500? Does a higher total T level, in your opinion, increased risk for earlier death over someone who hovers in the mid-range of normal?
What a question. Swaminator again. Good God, Swaminator is just knocking me senseless up against the ropes on this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to come off the ropes on this one. So, I mean, when you're on TRT, of course, you're only on TRT because you needed it, so you must have had low testosterone sometime along the line.
Yeah.
Was it from steroid use, or were you just some middle-aged guy with diabetes? Whatever. So, in the end of the day, when you give a man testosterone, are you doing gel, which is a topical, delivery system? Therefore, you're giving little doses every day, and then in theory, on paper, that seems like it's easier to dial up. But I don't like it. It delivers to children. And actually, at the end of the day, most men don't feel good on androgel. And I think it's because they actually don't take it properly. The skin's a bad medium. And maybe their levels, funny enough, in the beginning seem like they're managed on paper. But in the end, I just had a guy where he's on the same dose and all of a sudden he just tanked. And I can just keep giving him more and more androgel like he's bathing in it. And I don't know if it's his hair or his skin tanning stuff, or his cosmetics he puts on. So in the end of the day, men live on small doses of intermuscular esters. And let's talk about the pharmacology of the intermuscular ester. Half-life of it's testosterone and anthocyanate, right?
Yeah.
In other countries, you could certainly use undecanate. We have it here, but we just don't. It's kind of like a trend cough that you could potentially get because it's an oil embolus. I know that's not trend cough, but it's all kind of scary to me. So we don't like, the testosterone undecanate, and the Europeans like it because it's one injection every couple of months. So we're right, Ron. I mean,
yeah, I find it ridiculous. Okay.
I think it's ridiculous too. I just think it's a reason. I'm going to say some stuff. I think it's a reason for the doctors to say, I don't trust you, man. Let me inject you so I can get a reason to come in and maybe get a copay or have. Sorry, I had to say it. So when doctors have patients coming in for every 2 weeks or a week or so to get injections, one recent story I heard was that a doctor, I'm not going to say where or what, maybe this is over in Europe. He said, well, it's against the law. You can't have your own bottle and inject yourself. And the poor guy was going into the office because he thought that it's illegal for him to. No, the answer to that is no. That's not illegal. You could inject yourself. Okay, so beyond that, men should be on small doses of intermuscular esters of testosterone, and what you do is you look at the nadir. Or you could look at the peak. But if we understand the pharmacokinetics, you inject the drug, it goes up, and then it goes down. So in between the injections, you want to have a guy be softer, right? You don't want this. You don't want the doctors, again, I'm not putting them down, but the doctor gives a big bolus every 2 weeks or a month. The guy's going super physiologic, and then he's crashing, up, down. And not to mention the estrogen levels are all over the place, and that's not going to be good for the guy. The guy doesn't even feel good. So give small doses, Swami, and you take typically. Look, this is not for you. I'm not giving medical advice. Typically, most men in the world, every doctor knows this, it's about 200 milligrams per mil, about a half a mil every 5 to 7 days, right out of the book. And then you check the levels after about 5 steady states, after 5 half-lives for a steady state. That's about 60 days in the beginning. And then you check it before the injection. And you want to see, it typically ranges from like 300-400 to like 700. It's all over. After doing this for over a decade, that number is important. It does have to be within normal range. It could be upper limit normal. But you know what, Swami? You know what the most important thing is? What is it doing to you, sir? How are you feeling? And equally as important to how you're feeling is it hurting your heart, your prostate, your kidneys? That's what I do. It's common sense to me. You keep the dose as low as you can. And then all my other stuff I talk about is how does it affect the heart, affect the kidney. We talked about the corpus cavernosum, nitric oxide. All those things are together, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's the dose and the number. Once you get a guy nailed down, you got his dose just about dialed in, I focus everything else on his health and his well-being. And I've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh man, Ron,
yeah.
There's not one man, and I've seen thousands, and there's not one man that are down. There's not 2 men that are the same.
Okay.
So that's the question of that, Swami.
Okay, this is from Volaroid. I believe this came to me via some social media thing. Hello, Dr. O'Connor. I'm a molecular biology student. I find your videos very informative and innovating. And can you give your thoughts on what is relationship between diabetes and low testosterone? Thank you very much. Salute from Bulgaria.
Actual Bulgarian brothers.
Yeah.
All right, so this is back to the real medical stuff. So, okay, let's see if I can make it simple. So they don't really fully understand it, but we know there's some cause and effect. This has to be to men, of course, because it's diabetes. There's a lot of people who are diabetic. I think 75% of our country is going to be diabetic in 20 years or some number. So obesity, what are you going to do? It's living the dream in America. So when you are this is type 2 diabetes versus type 1. Yeah. So type 1 is an absolute reduction and an absolute existence of insulin out of the pancreas because you're attacking your immune system. And you're ablated and you have no insulin overnight. Typically a young person, and they're sick, and that's type 1. So this is all type 2 diabetes where you go through a period because your belly fat in the visceral cavity is increasing, and the receptors, the tyrosine kinase receptors, this is for the molecular guy, are becoming desensitized with your insulin, with a molecule of glucose and those receptors in your visceral fat. Also in the muscle, skeletal muscle, not the central nervous system, it's not necessary. Insulin is not necessary. The central nervous system derives glucose directly out of the blood. That's why if you tank your blood, your brain's in trouble and you're in trouble. That's insulin coma. Yeah. It's actually hypoglycemic coma, secondary to too much insulin. Okay, so we're talking about belly fat, visceral adiposopathy, and men and androgen states and fat in the belly. So chicken or the egg? You get older, your T goes lower. When your T is lower, we know that there's a worse insulin resistant state set up, and therefore your belly gets bigger and you become more pre-diabetic and diabetic. And when you're more pre-diabetic and diabetic, that poisons the cytokines from the belly, and the adipose tissue poisons and causes further diminished low levels of T. Then you have a vicious cycle. Did I explain it? I explained it. So it's chicken or the egg. You have diabetes. Most men in this America, I assume in your country the same, most men that are middle-aged that have low T, their number one reason, and I have it right in my office, they're not all steroid users that come to see me. They have prediabetes and diabetes. So the number one organic cause for hypogonadism is type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
So that's the mechanism. And steroids, look what steroids do. So testosterone, put it on steroids. It's called steroid. What does it do? It builds muscle tissue. and it definitely burns off adipose. We don't need to go into the mechanisms on how androgen receptors in adipose tissue get turned on, and the free fatty acids basically they deteriorate, and you atrophy the adipose tissue, and you build muscle. This is a beautiful. We wish we could have the whole world doing this without using steroids. Right on.
Correct.
So that's really, when you have a lot more muscle and less fat, your basal metabolic rate is higher. And again, for all the guys that are for all the I want to say natty. I just want to. Ron, imagine I wore a hat, the flat jack that says natty.
Boston fats are 100% natty.
Okay, 100%. So I'm gonna have to get that hat. So just a joke. So it is true. So the diabetes, and was that the question, Ron? Diabetes and how it works in the belly?
Yeah, he just wanted to know the relationship between low T and diabetes. What you felt.
So most guys. So if you have low T, you can become diabetic. But I think the most common scenario when no one knows chicken or the egg yet, really, and I'd love to hear the arguments, and I love to someone teach me this stuff, of course, is that you're probably pre-diabetic or diabetic first, and then your T goes down. Because it's cytokines in the adipose tissue in your belly that's really diseased. It actually has cytokines, messengers that interact and poison and shut down the production of testosterone in the testicle. So that's the scientific answer.
All right, we're going to keep going. Boy, we're going to do a lightning round here. Train for Life wants to know, is taking 10 milligrams a day of Cialis bad for my heart health over time, or bad in terms of any other health issues? I've heard it's good to take pre-workout. I know a lot of guys who compete and take it say it's awesome, but I'm too damn scared to take it because I don't know if there are any long-term side effects. So he's wondering, can he take 10 milligrams of Cialis a day safely forever?
You can't do anything. I'm not your doctor. You can't do anything. You can't do. I'm not referring to any of this stuff. So let's talk about the mechanism. It's a scientific show. It's a cultural show. Let's talk about. We just talked about it again. Let's review it again. Cialis, phosphodiesterase inhibitor. It's the longest acting. It's got a very long half-life versus Viagra, which is shorter. And when you use this drug, it increases nitric oxide in the corpus cavernosum and other tissue in the body. There's nothing more to say. So you should not use these medicines unless you need them. If you're doing it for a pump, I mean, if your heart is damaged, if you have heart disease, the number one contraindication with any of these drugs, and I'll tell you, a pharmacist will never fill that prescription in this country, I assume in other countries too, that if you have heart disease and some doctor gave you nitro tabs, nitro old school nitroglycerin, that's for my medical student. So they're going to have a multiple choice test question. If a guy comes in and he's on Viagra, blah, 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 which medication is absolutely contraindicated? Nitro.
Oh, that's right.
So it vasodilates. The hypotension can be so extreme that your blood vessels in the coronary artery are going to dilate widely, and your pressure is going to tank. You're going to get a reflex tachycardia and have a heart attack. We've seen it. It's in the preclinical trials. This was the number one. The reason why they almost didn't clear it, because who's going to use it? Guys that have heart disease, because their penis doesn't work. Right. So you don't want to use it. You never want. If you're a young guy, if you use these drugs, can't you see what's going on with me? If you use them, you may be reliant upon them, and you may cause damage because you're going to desensitize or sensitize upregulation, downregulation, bro science. You're going to affect that target tissue, and if you never used it, you never need it. Why would you use it? When I tell my patients, when I give them any drug, first of all, they're my patients. I've already seen them backwards and forwards. They've already gone through my madness like this in person. And when I tell them, I don't, obviously this goes on, I've been complaining that I spend too much time with patients. That's okay. So, because I'm crazy, this is what I do. So, you give a medicine to someone, there could be side effects. So, could you have a rash to it, an allergy? So you don't want to live on 10 milligrams. And some guy I saw my video on my page, I did my video about Cialis because it was I did one of my own videos on it. And I said that I like to take it and whatever the dose was. You shouldn't take anything unless you need it. And if you should always use the lowest possible dose. So it's not, there's 2.5 milligram tablets, 5 milligram, 10 milligram, and 20. And of course, over in Europe, and the guys are making all sorts of drop formulations because it's counterfeit. You don't know what it is. The truth of the matter is 10 milligrams is about half throttle, but why are you using it for, I'm sorry, Ron. I mean, it's just, why are you using it? So I never want this to be thought that I'm giving you advice that you should be using. I'm talking about the scientific properties and the clinical indications why we as physicians use it for human beings. And this is not bro science. This is real science. But so the long-term effects, we don't know. And it looks like it actually may potentially help and heal and maintain elasticity of the endothelial bed. And that was studied. These are limited studies, though, Ron. I don't want doctors to smash me. That's not true. We don't know. But we do have data. How long has Viagra been around, Ron? 1990s?
Yeah, about 20 years now.
There are men that I know that have been on Viagra or Levitra or more commonly Cialis for up to 20 years. And the hearts are good. They're fine. The brains are fine. No strokes. The kidneys are fine. The liver's fine. So that from a retrospective and from a utility standpoint, it looks really, really good. But again, these are men that are using it. These are for sexual optimization, of course, to have sex.
Yeah.
But so for anti-aging purposes, you got to be careful with all that. Even my metformin and all the stuff I talk about, again, don't try it at home.
Okay.
But it's cool stuff.
Oh boy, Heroes Fall asks 4 questions. We might not get to all of them. Let's try. Heroes Fall, number 1. If red blood count, RBC is red blood count, red blood cells?
Yeah.
RBC, hematocrit, and hemoglobin are on the high normal range, not outside the range on blood work, but just inside, while heart rate, blood pressure, and other indicators are all in great optimal range. Is there concern with TRT use for having cardiovascular issues either in the near term or in the future if values raise beyond the range? Note, values were the same prior to TRT, indicating perhaps a genetic disposition as opposed to a result of TRT.
Oh, wow. This is going to be hard for me to stay on point with this one, Ron. Here we go. So this actually, 2 birds with 1 stone here, because I got a guy from my site, Ron, that asked a similar question about TRT and red blood cells. Here we go. Yep. So, okay, where do I want to start with this? Testosterone. Men have higher hematocrits than women, and that's a standard on the reference range because we have higher testosterone levels. I asked my medical student today for him to learn and to teach me again how does testosterone increase red blood cells in hematocrit hemoglobin? Well, we don't fully understand, but we know that there's at least 2 areas, and testosterone stimulates the kidneys. And I'm not going to get into the details of the EPO levels, EPOGEN, and I'm not going to get into the levels of where. I love the molecular guys though, and it stimulates EPO to go up, and then and that stimulates what's called erythrocytosis, which leads to a condition that means you're making red blood cells. You're doing it right now, and we look at your hemoglobin is in grams per deciliter, hematocrit is in percent. When they take that blood and they spit it in the centrifuge, you should see about, for a man, up to about 50%. The other part is called Buffy coat, and that's the serum. That's centrifuge. So, and women are lower. And if you're anemic, it means you're under, you're way under. So for these men, testosterone increases red blood cells through the kidney indirectly with EPO and directly on androgen receptors in the bone marrow. Okay. When you take, I discovered this. This is this cool stuff. This is what the show is all about. The really cool stuff that I don't think many doctors, because I call the hematologists, brilliant guys like Doc, we don't know. In the beginning when I was doing this, 10 years ago, I was calling every doctor in the country. Doc, I was brokering deals, and I was getting all these really smart doctors, and they were like, the answer really is, Tom, we don't really know. I mean, every man, testosterone, hematocrit goes up, every single one. You're never going to go down. When I say like never, and I start saying I'm selling a used car, you got to listen to that, because every man's crit goes up. But how much? So it depends on who the man is. It depends, and this guy's normal. So the answer to that is, if you're within normal range, it's not going to affect you.
Okay.
Not on hematocrit. But testosterone increases hematocrits. Anabolic steroids, depending on who you are, decadirabine, some of those NOR19 drugs, is that a NOR19? I always forget this stuff.
You said it was last show.
I'm doing more medicine than bro science. Anabolic steroids, there are specific ones that definitely are more erythrogenic. It's amazing. Decadirabine is the poster child. They used to use it in the old days for people that were anemic. They were waiting on dialysis to get treatment. And probably in countries where we don't have EPO, we use EPO. And instead of EPO, we use steroids. But then you had grandma was shaving, and she was benching more than you. That wasn't good. So Ron, so steroids and testosterone increase red blood cells. Most young men, I've seen guys take 2 or 3 grams, and their hematocrits are normal. When a man gets older, on TRT even, that's why it's a very important question today. Well, even men on TRT, they're in their 40s. There's some sensitivity, and their hematocrits go up. How much do they go up? You have to check to see if you don't have a congenital mutation for hereditary hemochromatosis. Polycythemia. So if a guy comes into me early, before he does steroids, and he has polycythemia already because his dad has a congenital condition called hereditary hemochromatosis. I see all this stuff. Those are the bodybuilders and powerlifters. Those are the guys that have really early strokes and heart attacks because they're gambling in Vegas, Ron. They have a congenital abnormality for polycythemia, and then they put it on steroids. Their hematocrits, I've seen hematocrits almost up to 70. Now, that's a guy that has an underlying issue, and then he just put it on. And then on top of that, sleep. I'm giving you easy stuff, guys. Obstructive sleep apnea raises, on top of androgen, is going to cause higher levels of red blood cell production. It's called erythrocytosis that can lead to polycythemia. I swear, Ron. So when I see guys on TRT, I check them. And then one interesting finding I found years ago, I started checking and these were mainly Caucasian men. You don't see this with the African American guys. So I looked in the literature and I started checking gene studies on these Caucasian men with elevated red blood cells over 52% for hematocrit, because 50 to 52 is normal. Even 54% is considered normal in this country. So that's a reference range issue, sir. So 50 to 54 is considered normal. It depends on what lab you're going to. Okay, so beyond that, when I saw guys that were on a little bit of TRT with me, they're off steroids, they're cruising, I'm taking care of them, I'm nailing them down, and I'm going, Jesus Christ, these guys have hematocrits of 56%. What are we going on? I started checking their genes. And they're all carriers, they're half carriers for hereditary hemochromatosis. And this is definitely a study that I have data for that a doctor in Boston wants me to present, because I found that the men that were sensitive to androgen, and this is apart from other congenital issues, other steroid use, sleep apnea, I found the men that were sensitive to TRT, it's because they had half a gene for hereditary hemochromatosis.
Wow.
So I'm just trying to answer the question. So the rest of his questions were, there's no data. I'm a data guy. There's no data to support that if you're in the normal range, there's not going to do anything to your cardiac system. Cardiac disease, remember, it's 10 things, if not 50 things. blood pressure, cholesterol, sugar. If you have all those moons lining, that's why I address all the individual pieces. Go for low, I say the same thing every day, Ron. Low-hanging fruit, blood pressure, cholesterol abnormalities, prediabetes, diabetes, same thing over and over. I have my protective medicines. I get doses of tea tight, straight, so you feel great. And then enjoy your life, have great sex, and stay in great shape, and just good luck in life. But that guy's question, there's no data. You don't, and oh my God, all these guys are over phlebotomy. All these men are just taking off blood into the sink. Ron, it's another article. I'm going to do an article. I'm doing an article on my article for you guys was, do you remember my article, Ron? Heavy duty blood is not cool, man. That was the name of my article.
Wow.
And that was about red blood cells. And that was the guy that I asked in the chair. I go, hey, what's your family history for hereditary stuff? And he goes, you know what, man? I go, my dad gets his blood phlebotomized, and my brother. And I go, oh my God, you have her. And I check his genes, and he had hereditary human chromatosis. This being off steroids, his hematocrit was high naturally. So I said, sir, we need to send you to a GI expert, and we got to get your liver checked, and they're going to phlebotomize you. And he goes, wow, heavy duty blood is not cool, man.
Also, I thought you came up with that. That was an actual quote from a patient.
Well, that was an actual. All the storylines came from the patient, someone. So, but that was a cool. So guys are over phlebotomizing. They're taking off all the production of red blood cells. They're just looking at the H&H, hematocrit, hemoglobin, hemoglobin, H&H we call it. And then if you look at, I've done all these iron studies, ferritin, TIBC, transparent saturation, and total iron levels. I looked at all this and found out these guys are basically iron levels. And at a certain point, I see men, these are guys on TRT, and they're just nervous. And they're just phlebotomizing if they're Red Cross or what, and their H&H is okay. Then it starts to drift downward, and then they're actually anemic.
So the practice, it's a very common practice. I've heard of a lot of guys say, well, I go and give blood every 4 weeks when I'm on a cycle, and that's going to keep me from having too much red blood cells. So that's completely unnecessary to do.
Ron, I'm a scientist. I'm a doctor. How do your red blood cells look? That's the first question. So get some blood work done. And do you have a congenital issue called polycythemia? Do you have polycythemia? And if you do, what is it congenital? Is it from sleep apnea? Is it from, again, Ron, it's never one thing. You see how crazy my life is? But I have to organize. As a physician, we have to organize, there's a structure. Check your CBC. Do you have that guy you're talking about? He just said, if I remember correctly, his levels are normal. So
yeah.
I could have answered it with one word. There's nothing wrong. I mean, there's no one answer.
Yeah. I just noticed your scrubs say Anabolic Doc on them right there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I wore this for today. This is my
Anabolic Doc, T. O'Connor, MD. Yeah.
Hey, this is who I am.
Absolutely.
That's what it is.
Cool. Well, you were more than generous, as always, with your time, Doctor. We went over an hour. That's crazy.
Oh.
So, yeah, I know. And that's after 40 patients today, probably. So
brutal. No, never 40, maybe 10. Today was a big day.
Well, you take too much time with your patients. We've established that. So
awesome.
I want to thank you and encourage everyone to check out more of the Anabolic Doc at his websites, anabolicdoc.com and metabolicdoc.com, where you can get a copy of his new book, America on Steroids, A Time to Heal. For myself, Ron Harrison, MD, this has been Ask the Anabolic Doc with Dr. Thomas O'Connor. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.